Your brain lies to you every single day. Not in small ways either. It bends reality, edits your memories, and tricks you into making decisions that feel smart, but are actually sabotaging your future. And here's the wildest part, these mental traps don't just happen to other people. They happen to you, me, and literally every human being alive. They're called cognitive biases, and once you see them, you'll never be able to unsee them. Today, we're exposing 15 of the most powerful biases shaping your money, relationships, and happiness. You'll catch yourself nodding because you've done these exact things without realizing. And by the end, you'll start noticing how much control your brain really has over you. Let's dive in. 1. The ostrich effect, when avoidance feels safer than truth. Imagine you've just had a wild weekend, bars, restaurants, maybe a shopping spree you didn't need. Monday morning arrives and your banking app is right there on your phone screen. You know you should check it, but you don't. Instead you slide it away, promising yourself you'll look tomorrow. That's the ostrich effect, burying your head in the sand to avoid bad news. For a moment it feels safe. You think, if I don't see it, maybe it isn't real, but the bill still comes. The balance still drops. The problem only grows while you pretend it doesn't exist. This bias fools you into thinking ignorance equals safety. But in reality, it's like ignoring smoke in your kitchen, hoping it'll disappear before the fire spreads. And the scary part? Most people live like this every day, but sometimes it's not what we avoid. It's what we cling to that ruins us. 2. The sunk cost fallacy, throwing good time after bad. Ever kept watching a boring Netflix series just because you'd already wasted 6 hours on it? That's the sunk cost fallacy. We tell ourselves, I've already put in this much, I might as well keep going. But think about it, does your past investment make the present experience any better? Businesses fall into this trap constantly. A company pours millions into a project that clearly won't work, but they keep funding it anyway. Why? Because quitting feels like admitting defeat. Here's the truth. The money, the time, the energy you've already spent, it's gone. What matters is the next decision. Do you keep throwing fuel on a dying fire, or do you walk away and light a new one? Most people choose the fire. Smart people, they choose the future. But even when we do have a choice, too many options can feel like a curse. 3. The paradox of choice freedom that feels like prison. Picture this. You walk into a restaurant, open the menu, and it's 20 pages long. Burgers, sushi, pasta, steak, vegan bowls, Thai curry. Suddenly you don't feel excited, you feel overwhelmed. That's the paradox of choice. We think more options equal more happiness, but too many options lead to paralysis. You freeze, second guess, and later regret what you chose. Supermarkets know this. Studies show that when people are offered 24 flavors of jam, fewer buy. When they're offered just 6, sales skyrocket. Freedom feels like a gift, but when it's unlimited, it feels like prison. And when freedom gets overwhelming, your brain grabs onto the first number it sees, even if that number is a trap. 4. Anchoring effect. The first number owns your brain. Ever see a shirt in a store for $200? You'd never pay that, right? But then you see another shirt, similar style, for $50. Suddenly $50 feels cheap. That's the anchoring effect. Your brain grabs the first number it sees and uses it as a reference point, even if it's absurd. Car salespeople, real estate agents, even online shops use this trick every day. Show you something ridiculously expensive first, then slide in something slightly less insane, and suddenly it feels like a bargain. The anchor is invisible, but once it's set, your brain struggles to escape it. But sometimes, it's not just the first number that tricks you, it's the fake option sitting right in the middle. 5. The decoy effect. When a bad option exists just to trick you. Movie theaters have mastered this. Small popcorn, $3. Medium popcorn, $6.50. Large popcorn, $7. Who in their right mind would buy the medium? Nobody. And that's the point. The medium exists only as a decoy, making the large look like the smartest choice. That's the decoy effect. We rarely choose what we want most. We choose what looks best compared to the alternatives. The next time you're about to upgrade just a little bit more, ask yourself, are you really choosing, or are you being herded toward the option they wanted all along? And the same illusion works with people, because one shiny quality can blind us to all the flaws. 6. The halo effect, judging a book by its shine. We all know someone who just looks successful. They walk into a room with perfect posture, crisp clothes, and a smile that could sell ice to penguins. Instantly, people assume, this person must be smart, trustworthy, maybe even a great leader. That's the halo effect. One positive trait like attractiveness, charisma, or even a fancy title casts a glow over everything else. But the shine blinds us. The sharp dresser might be terrible at their job. The funny guy might not be reliable at all. Yet our brain keeps insisting, good in one area must mean good everywhere. It's not logic, it's a shortcut. And shortcuts often lead us straight into mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, we think everyone notices ours, but they don't. 7. The spotlight effect. Nobody's watching you as closely as you think. You spill coffee on your shirt before a meeting. You walk in, convinced everyone is staring, judging, laughing inside. But here's the reality. Almost nobody notices. Why? Because they're too busy worrying about themselves. That's the spotlight effect. We think the world has a spotlight on our every flaw, when in reality most people don't care. Ironically, realizing this can feel liberating. You're not the center of the universe. You're free to make mistakes without the whole world keeping score. But there's one thing the world does pay attention to: bad news. And your brain eats it up like candy. 8. Negativity bias. The brain's obsession with bad news. You could get 100 compliments in one day, but if one person insults you, what do you remember before falling asleep? The insult. That's the negativity bias. The brain is wired to pay more attention to threats than rewards because in ancient times, missing a threat could get you killed. The problem? In today's world, threats aren't saber-toothed tigers. They're tweets, headlines, and throwaway comments. And yet our brain treats them like life-or-death situations. That's why bad news spreads faster than good news. Fear gets clicks, anger gets shares, and our brain can't get enough. But fear isn't just about bad news, it's about what we're terrified of losing. 9. Loss aversion, the fear that burns twice as strong. Imagine you invest $1,000 in a stock. It goes up to $1,200, amazing, you feel happy. Now imagine it drops to $800. The pain you feel? It's twice as strong as the joy you felt earlier. That's loss aversion. We hate losing more than we love winning. This bias explains why gamblers keep chasing losses, why investors hold sinking stocks, and why most people settle for safe decisions that keep them stuck. It's not about what we gain. It's about avoiding the sting of loss even when that sting is imaginary. But sometimes it's not fear that tricks us, it's confidence. Dangerous, misplaced confidence. 10. Dunning-Kruger effect. The danger of a little knowledge. Read one article about cryptocurrency? Suddenly you're an expert dishing out advice at dinner. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with low ability often overestimate their knowledge because they don't know enough to realize what they don't know. Meanwhile, true experts often underestimate themselves because they're painfully aware of how much there still is to learn. It's why beginners shout with confidence, and masters often speak with caution. And once you think you know it all, your brain starts ignoring anything that proves you wrong. 11. Confirmation bias, searching for comfort, not truth. Let's say you believe a certain diet is the best. What do you Google? Probably, why this diet works. And what do you ignore? Articles saying the opposite. That's confirmation bias. We don't search for truth, we search for validation. We want evidence that makes us feel right, not evidence that might prove us wrong. This bias is why political debates never change anyone's mind. Each side only sees what supports their view, blind to everything else. It's not just ignorance, it's willful blindness. And when we don't find comfort in our beliefs, we look for safety in the crowd. 12. Bandwagon effect. When everyone's doing it, so you do too. Remember when fidget spinners suddenly exploded? Or when everyone downloaded the same app overnight? That's the bandwagon effect. We assume if so many people are doing it, it must be good. But crowds are often wrong. The same herd mentality that creates viral hits also creates bubbles, hype, and bad decisions. When you see a wave, ask yourself, am I riding it because it's smart, or just because everyone else is? And once the wave crashes, we all pretend we knew it all along. 13. Hindsight bias. I knew it all along. After a sports game, fans love to say, "Of course that team won, it was obvious." But before the game, they were unsure. That's hindsight bias. Once something happens, we trick ourselves into believing we predicted it all along. It makes us overconfident. It makes history look inevitable. And worst of all, it makes us blind to our own mistakes. You didn't know it. You only think you did. But, while the past gets rewritten, the present keeps haunting us with unfinished business. 14. Zeigarnik effect, the unfinished loop that haunts you. Ever tried to fall asleep but couldn't stop thinking about an unfinished report? That's the Zeigarnik effect. The brain hates open loops. It clings to incomplete tasks, replaying them over and over until they're either done or written down. That's why to-do lists work. Writing things down tricks your brain into letting go. You close the loop, even if you haven't finished the task. But the strangest bias of all is the one that convinces you that you've stopped changing. 15. End of history. Illusion, believing you've stopped changing. Think about who you were 5 years ago. The clothes you wore, the music you loved, the opinions you held. Chances are you've changed a lot. But when you think 5 years into the future, you imagine you'll be basically the same person you are today. That's the end of history illusion. We underestimate how much we'll change in the future, even though we've changed dramatically in the past. The truth is, you're not a finished product, you're a work in progress, always evolving. Which brings us to the big question: if your brain is wired with all these traps, how do you fight back? Here's the big takeaway. These 15 biases aren't random glitches in your brain. They were built as survival tools, shortcuts that helped our ancestors react fast in a dangerous world. But today, those same shortcuts are the reason we overspend, get trapped in bad decisions, and worry about things that don't matter. The next time you catch yourself clinging to a bad investment, chasing trends, or avoiding uncomfortable truths, pause. Ask yourself, am I really making this choice? Or is my brain running on autopilot? Because once you see the biases, you can fight them. And when you fight them, you finally start living with clarity instead of illusion. So tell me in the comments, which bias hit you the hardest? Was it ignoring problems like the ostrich effect or chasing comfort with confirmation bias? Your brain is powerful, but it's not always on your side. The question is, now that you know, what will you do with that power?